Welcome to Watch Symposium. I'm Austin. All right, so if all is going as planned, you're seeing some eye candy to my left. Doing something a bit different today. This is the studio setting. It's quite a bit different than the way I usually shoot and not quite as exciting. I got to be careful because in this kind of setting, I tend to carry on. This is the second time I've shot this video, and the first time around it was like 28 minutes, so I have to be brief, and that's easy to do when you're outside and you have people walking around and your arm's getting tired. But here, it's easy to go off on tangents, so I'll have to be careful. All right, so yeah, one other thing. I've got a light to my right and a light to my left, and nothing in front of me. So you're seeing this kind of strange shadow right in the middle of my face. I don't know, maybe it's cool, maybe it looks good, but that's the reason for that. I probably need one right behind the camera to really make it perfect. All right, so this is a response to a comment that was in my Rolex manipulation video, link in the description. This was a comment from Danny Crivello, and it was very thoughtful, and so I thought I would focus on it, and we discussed some things in it. All right, so he writes, okay, this is my opinion, and I claim no superior knowledge. I believe that Rolex is not trying to manipulate the market, as the company hasn't produced fewer watches than before, but a couple of things happened. One, more people in the world can afford a Rolex than ever before, as the middle class worldwide is expanding. That's why the shortage is felt in the steel sports sector and not with precious metal Rolexes. For that middle class, Rolex is a different kind of brand. It is an aspirational brand, meaning whether people know much about horology, there is something about owning a Rolex to mark an achievement in your life that is seldom seen in other brands. All right, so he raises the point of Rolex becoming more popular, and I think he's absolutely right. 50 years ago, there was no market in China or Russia, and those markets have opened up, and I think for those people, Rolex is also the sort of the quintessential luxury brand. So as the world gets smaller with media and communications, I think Rolex's influence will grow as people become more economically able to purchase the brands, but also when they're exposed to marketing and Roger Federer and the information that's out there on the internet. I think that's going to grow a lot more Rolex appreciators, aficionados, enthusiasts. When I got into Rolex, I mean, proper, it was a couple of years ago. It was 2014, I want to say. But when I noticed Rolex, like I put in another video, I made another video quite a while ago about seeing a Rolex as a child. And at the time, I loved the way it looked. I mean, I knew Rolex was sort of the top brand. Now at the time, I don't think I knew what that meant, but I knew it was the best, whatever best means. And added to that was the aesthetics. And that was a Pepsi, a GMT Pepsi that I saw. And then fast forward a decade or two later, or three, and I started studying the brand and reading about the brand. And when you do that, if you liked Rolex before, well, you're gonna become quite a Rolex fanboy. And I think that's gonna happen as people become more affluent and make more money and get internet connections. And so I absolutely agree with that point that while the number of pieces might not increase, the number of pieces that Rolex produces, I think the people that want to buy them has increased, and I think it will increase in the future. So absolutely, that is a good point to keep in mind. Second, let's say you're producing 800,000 watches a year, just increasing the 10%. Sorry, let me read that sentence again. Just increasing that 10% to quickly respond to a surge in demand might present some QC challenges, quality control challenges, and now you're gambling with Rolex's entire reputation for top quality. You have to be very careful how you increase production. Absolutely. You know, in my video, I made it seem as though they could just knock out more pieces and satisfy the demand. And Danny brings up a great point. You just can't go from 800,000 watches to 1 million watches and expect everything to remain unchanged. Quality control issues could arise. Now, I'm speculating. In fact, I don't even know, but I will at least raise the question of whether Rolex produces the same number of steel pieces and two-tone pieces and precious metal pieces. I've always wondered that. I don't know. If anybody has any insight into that, I'd love to hear about it. I think it appears to me that long before they start actually making the pieces, they decide how many they're going to make. And again, I could be wrong here as well. And so what happens, I think, is that they'll produce a certain amount of, every piece. And of course, the quickest pieces to go are the steel pieces for a lot of reasons. First of all, they're sort of the bread and butter of the Rolex line. If you're a Rolex enthusiast, you know it all started with those steel pieces. Those are the most iconic pieces, the sub and the GMT. Of course, the Datejust is iconic in a way, but not to the extent. I think it's those sports steel pieces that really put Rolex on the map. The Explorer could be in that category as well. And added to that, if you walk into a Rolex AD, those are going to be the cheapest pieces that you see. And not only are, in my opinion, they're the most desirable, that's what I would go for, but for someone looking to get into the brand, they might just be drawn to the lower price tag. You compare it to a two-tone and it just might look like a better value. So there's a lot of reasons why I think those pieces go more quickly than, say, the two-tone. And remember, when I was in Fukuoka, I handled a GMT two-tone. You could buy it there, and it's probably still sitting there. But as I mentioned, the BLNR, the Batman, well, the one time that they got one, or the few times that they got one, the woman at the AD said that it was gone within 24 hours. So they're hot pieces for sure. Now, what I want to say, though, is that Rolex could satisfy the market by toning down those less desirable pieces, those pieces that don't sell as well. So, if they do sell, every year the same amount of pieces, that they produce the same amount of steel and two-tone and precious metal, they could, if they're aware of the market, and I'm sure they are, they could very well tone down the two-tones and tone down the precious metal production to satisfy the production of the steel pieces. And you kind of wonder why they don't do that. They have to be aware, they have to know that these pieces are really, they're what everybody wants. It just feels to me like a conscious decision that they're not going to satisfy demand. And I can see Rolex as a company that would say, we're going to produce 900,000 pieces a year, and we're going to do 300,000 of the two-tone, the precious metal, and the steel. And that's just what we're going to do. And the market can do what it wants, but that's just what we're going to do. And I can see them saying that. And if that's the case, that sort of explains why you can't get those steel pieces as easily. They could make it happen. And again, it wouldn't be upping it by 10% like Danny suggested. It would be decreasing the pieces that don't sell as well and increasing the pieces that do sell. But of course, I don't think they're going to do it. I don't think they'll ever do it. I don't think they have a reason to do it. And I just don't think it'll ever change. And I think they're very happy those pieces do sell out. I don't think they want to solve that problem. It's good for them. They sell. I think they sell some of those other pieces because when somebody walks in and they don't have a steel GMT in front of them, they might opt for the precious metal Rolex. And so, you know, and that would be somebody who maybe is not so aware of the brand, and they walk in and they don't even know the Batman exists. Perhaps they are looking at what's on offer, and they're going to make a choice, and they're going to choose. And because the steel pieces are not there, they might just go for the two-tone pieces. So, yeah, they could solve the problem, I want to say. Let me continue. He says, a final thought. The pre-Basel jitters, which are filled with speculation, always skew the market a bit. Hulks and BLNR are suddenly snatched wherever they can be found. A recent trend, really. For most of their existences, they were cheaper on the gray market. Production is now gearing up after the holiday break. Baselworld might show us maybe some better movements like the one in the new Sea Dweller, making current Rolex a little bit less desirable. Availability at reasonable prices will be back. That's a statement that, wow, it would be great if it was true, or would it? I don't know. I mean, if reasonable prices are back, I don't know if that devalues the watch I have on my wrist. But if you're looking to buy a watch, that would be a statement you'd want to believe. I don't know if I agree with it, though. In fact, I don't think I do. I don't really think the public at large really pays attention to Baselworld, and so you have to wonder, do the people in the watch business, does that affect how a BLNR would be priced, or if it would sell? Now, you got to remember Quirk and Fukuoka. They had 3 BLNR, and each one was at least $2,000 or $3,000 higher than what you could get one at an AD if you could find it. Now, I can imagine that prices would not increase as Baselworld approached, but it would decrease. I imagine that if you were working at Quirk, you might say, we've got 3 of these watches, and if they come out with another GMT Master 2 with a new color, that might take some of the wind out of the sails of the BLNR. And so we've got 3. Maybe we should, as Baselworld approaches, decrease the prices so we can at least get rid of a few. Yeah, I mean, you guys will have to discuss that in the comment section. Does Baselworld play a role? I don't think it does. I think it's a little bit more simple. I think it's the market and the fact that you can't go into an AD and get a Batman. Quirk knows that. And they buy them and they price them, and if you really want a Batman, you're just going to have to pay the extra $2,000 to $3,000. If they come out with a new GMT that looks like it's going to be more popular than the Batman, then I can see those prices going down. And if they discontinue the Batman altogether, then I can see those prices even going higher. So thank you, Danny, for the awesome comment. I'll put a copy of the comment in the description of the video so you can check it out. Yeah, it's very thought-provoking and very interesting, and I love to discuss these like what-ifs and speculate on the Rolex market. I will say this. I'll leave you guys with this. I think that the second BLNRs start to be available in ADs, I think that's going to be a sign that its time is short and that they're going to be discontinued.